"Don't eat that, sir. A billionaire wouldn't believe it if he hadn't seen it." So said a barefoot boy outside the windows of a luxurious Manhattan restaurant, where a scene capable of changing lives was unfolding among the crystal and marble. Everything was, as always, perfect in Ballora. Soft light was reflected in the glass goblets. The waiters moved almost silently, like actors at a rehearsal. Outside, the distant hum of the evening city could be heard, muffled, as if another reality had remained behind the glass. Bernard Chambers, a 72-year-old financier with an impeccable reputation, occupied his usual table by the window. His image, an elegant suit, gold cufflinks, an antique watch, embodied the old school. He ate slowly, with that calm that comes to people who no longer have to justify themselves to anyone. Next to him was Marissa, a slender woman 40 years younger. In her well-groomed appearance, in precise, almost theatrical movements, there was a sense of impeccable precision. With a slight smile, she pushed a plate of tomato soup towards her husband. "Do you want to try the signature soup?" "Not hungry yet," answered Bernard, without looking up from the screen of his phone. "Maybe later." When he again immersed himself in reading, Marissa quickly took a capsule from her purse and, taking advantage of the moment, poured the contents into the soup. With one easy movement of the spoon, everything was mixed. Not a single muscle twitched on her face. No one noticed anything. Almost no one. Across the street, his forehead pressed against the glass, stood a boy, Malik. He was about 12. He knew hunger, danger, and lies. He did not understand who was sitting at that table, but he clearly saw the woman added something to the soup. It was not a seasoning. Malik knew that they would not let him in, but the fear retreated, giving way to determination. He pushed the door and walked in. The entire luxurious room turned to look at him. A dirty sweatshirt, worn-out sneakers. He was a stranger in this world. "Please don't eat that," he shouted loudly. "Your wife put something in the soup." Everyone froze. Marissa laughed at first, falsely, demonstratively. "He's a homeless guy, probably high. He's talking nonsense." "I saw it," Malik repeated. "She had a capsule." The waiter was already calling the manager, and the guests were filming what was happening on their phones. Bernard silently looked at Marissa. She, noticing this, lost her composure for the first time. Her calm cracked. "Don't listen to him," she said coldly. "He just wants attention, or money." Bernard looked at the soup, then at her, and quietly said to the waiter, "Bring me another batch of soup, please, and call security, but don't let anyone leave yet, not him." Bernard nodded at Malik. "Not my wife." Marissa turned pale. Malik stood rooted to the spot, although everything inside him was shaking. He didn't know if he was saving someone's life or if he had just ruined his own, but one thing was clear. He had done the right thing, and now everything had to go to the end. A thick, almost tangible silence hung over the room. The customers at the neighboring tables exchanged glances, some with sympathy, some with suspicion. The manager whispered to the waiters, confused, and Bernard continued to silently look at Malik. His gaze was not judgmental, but penetrating, as if he was trying to look beyond the fear in the shabby clothes. "What is your name?" he asked finally. "Malik, sir." "Where do you live?" "Nowhere now, sometimes in a shelter, mostly on the streets." Marissa rolled her eyes, sighing in exasperation. "This is beyond the pale. Bernard, are you really going to listen to a homeless man who probably just wants to become an internet star or get compensation? This is absurd." Bernard turned to her. His voice was calm but firm. "What makes you so sure he made this all up?" Marissa tensed. "Because I'm not stupid. He just accused me of attempted murder. Do you hear what he's saying?" "Yes, and I hear you trying to steer the conversation away from us." He turned to the waiter. "Where's the soup my wife offered me?" "It's on the table, sir. We didn't clean it." "Fine, have them check it. Call the police, the sanitation service, whoever. I want an analysis and a report, and until then, no one leaves the premises." Marissa jumped up. "You can't be serious. I'm dead serious." The restaurant staff, although stunned by what was happening, began to act. Someone had already called the police. Malik was still standing between the guard and Bernard, but now, not as an intruder, but as a witness. For the first time in his life, an adult heard him. It was unusual and scary. "What exactly did you see, Malik?" Bernard asked quietly. "I was standing outside the window. I often stand there. Sometimes the waiters take out the leftovers. I saw your wife take a small capsule from her coat pocket. She quickly poured it into the soup while you were looking at your phone. Then she stirred it with a spoon. It was quick, but I definitely noticed. I know when a person does something they shouldn't do." "And you decided to burst in and tell me about it?" Bernard asked. "Yes." "Why?" Malik paused, pressed his lips together, then looked up. "I don't know who you are, but no one deserves to be poisoned. Even if you're rich, even if you're married to a beautiful woman." For a moment, there was a deep silence in the room. And then there was a smattering of applause, awkward but sincere. People began to exchange glances. Marissa, feeling the ground slipping from under her feet, sank into a chair and quietly muttered through her teeth, "He's lying. Street kids always lie." "Maybe," Bernard responded calmly, "but maybe he's the only one here who's telling the truth." The first police officers arrived 15 minutes later. The sanitary service followed. The soup was carefully packed and sent for analysis. The restaurant's cameras and the guests' phones recorded everything that was happening. Marissa tried to maintain the appearance of control, but her face was increasingly tense. One of the officers was interviewing witnesses, the other was talking to Bernard. He explained the situation without unnecessary emotion and insisted that the boy be treated with respect. Malik was given a glass of water. He sat motionless, still not believing that he had been heard. He didn't know what would happen next, but now everything was real. "We'll test the soup," the policeman said, "but if there's nothing in it, it will be considered a false accusation. This could cost the boy dearly. If he's wrong, I'll help him myself." "But if he is right, you must take action," Bernard answered firmly. An hour later, the preliminary results came in. Dixon, a powerful substance capable of causing cardiac arrest, was found in the soup, a prescription drug. The silence that hung in the room seemed like an eternity. "Mrs. Chambers, please stand up," the officer said. "You are under arrest on a suspicion of attempted murder." "This is a mistake. Someone has set me up," Marissa screamed, but her voice was shaking. Handcuffs snapped on her wrists. People were silent. Some were filming, some were just watching. Marissa, still protesting, was led out of the room. "I don't ask," Malik said quietly. "I just wait outside. Sometimes it works. Not always." "Where do you sleep?" Bernard asked. "There's a basement a block away. The door is boarded up, but I know how to get in. Sometimes at the shelter, but it's complicated there. Fights, thefts. Better alone." Bernard was silent. There was no pity in his gaze, but rather an attentive concern mixed with sadness. He too hadn't grown up in wealth. Not on the streets, but he knew that it was almost impossible to get out without someone's help. "How old are you?" 12. "Parents?" "Mom died. I don't know my father. Foster families are worse than the streets. I tried. Better garbage than fear." Malik's voice was even, not because he didn't care, but because he had long ago learned not to spill his emotions. People rarely want to hear long stories from people like him. "Why didn't you run away?" Bernard suddenly asked. "You knew you could get into trouble, didn't you?" "Yeah, but if I'd kept quiet and you died, that would have been worse." Bernard looked at him for a long moment, then reached into his wallet and pulled out a silver platinum business card. "Do you know who I am?" Malik shrugged. "No. My name is Bernard Chambers. I founded Chambers Development Group. We build housing, schools, offices, and we fund a couple of programs to help children. Maybe you've heard of it. I only read the trash papers. They don't write about people like you." Bernard grinned. "Fair enough. Want me to order you dinner?" Malik hesitated, then nodded. They brought him a sandwich and French fries. He ate slowly with dignity, like a man who knows the value of every crumb, but does not want to look either greedy or pathetic. "You have a keen eye," Bernard noted, watching the boy carefully wrap half the food in a napkin. "Learning to survive?" "Yes, you have to notice everything on the street." Her hand trembled. The capsule was different from the sugar. "And also, Your wife's face is the same as that of a man from the past." He also smiled at first and then hit her. Bernard looked away. Marissa, her touch, her smirks, and everything he didn't want to notice. Irritation, shadows in her voice, lies he justified. "Are you afraid she'll come back?" he asked quietly. "Maybe, but if she does, you'll be ready now." Bernard grinned. Then he stood up. "Come on, I'll take you." "Not to the police. I just want to see where you live. Maybe I can change something." Malik froze. He had already taken a risk once, and was right. He nodded. Bernard paid. On the way out, he paused for a moment and looked at the empty table. The bowl of soup remained untouched. The world he was used to no longer seemed safe. But in its shadow, there was a boy who was not afraid to tell the truth. And maybe that meant more than any title or fortune. The police had already begun to sort out the details. The results of the analysis of the soup confirmed the presence of Dixon. The case was transferred to the prosecutor's office. The restaurant's cameras, the video of eyewitnesses, everything became evidence. Time passed. More and more questions arose, and the truth finally came to light. Everything that was happening only fueled the interest. The story of a billionaire whose young wife tried to poison him sounded like a script for a crime film, and was even more shocking because it was real. Bernard Chambers was sitting in his office on the 5th floor of the Chambers Development Group headquarters. He looked out the huge panoramic window at Spring, New York, where life seemed to be going on as usual. Yesterday, he had been 2 steps away from death. Today, he was at the epicenter of public attention. But it was not the cameras and journalists that worried him most. He remembered how many times in the past months he had felt anxiety, fleeting doubts, strange words, cold looks. He did not want to see the obvious, and now he was paying for it. "You should definitely only comment with a lawyer," said the assistant, entering with a tablet. "The press will not let you go. The stocks are holding up for now, but the tension is growing." Bernard nodded. He knew his name was not just a surname, it was a symbol of stability, respect, reputation. And now it became the headline on all the news sites, but with a different subtext. "Where is the boy now?" he asked without turning around. "We placed him in a private center, not a shelter, safe. There is security there while the investigation is ongoing. I want to talk to him, tonight." Meanwhile, at the police station, Marissa was sitting in the interrogation room. Without makeup, in a gray sweatshirt, she seemed both younger and tired, but not scared, more like irritated. The lawyer nervously walked around the room, glancing at the notes in the folder. "All this is nonsense. They have no direct evidence. The witness is a street kid, underage, doubtful reliability. Besides, no one saw the moment itself. The cameras did not record it." "The cameras," Marissa looked up. "The camera above your desk wasn't working. Maybe a technical glitch. That could work to our advantage. But analyzing the soup is a real problem." She was silent. Then she said quietly, "I just wanted to leave gracefully, without a scandal, without a split, without lawyers. He would have given me the power of attorney anyway. He's old, a month or two, and no one would have suspected anything." "Well, he's not a child." The lawyer froze. "You just confessed, Marissa." She smiled, coldly, almost with disdain. "Really, you said it yourself. No direct evidence." Bernard arrived at that very center in the evening. A modest building, guarded from the outside, clean and quiet inside. He entered, feeling his steps on the laminate echo in the emptiness. They were waiting for him. There was a conversation ahead, which he didn't know how to approach. But he knew one thing for sure. This boy deserved to hear more than just "thank you." It was a small house in a quiet suburb, converted into a charity shelter. It smelled of wood, home cooking, and safety. Malik was sitting in the common room, thoughtfully turning the board game box in his hands. He didn't feel like playing. Too many things were still spinning in his head. "You held up really well that night," Bernard said, sitting down next to him. "I haven't forgotten my promise." Malik nodded slightly. He still doubted whether he could trust adults. "Do you have a dream?" Bernard asked unexpectedly. "Yes," the boy answered quietly. "Just to sleep peacefully, to have your own toothbrush, and to know that there will be food tomorrow. Bernard nodded, clasping his hands. You will have all of this. If you don't mind, I would like to start the guardianship process, through all the necessary procedures. But I want to help you with housing, education, a normal life. Malik was silent for a long time, then asked, Why do you believe me? Bernard looked straight ahead. Because I didn't believe myself, but you did. And you did what you had to. You did the right thing. And that means you have something that can't be bought. Conscience, courage, and the intuition to not remain silent when it's important. He stood up. I'll leave you my business card. A social worker will come tomorrow. Everything will be according to the law. But the main thing is that you're not alone anymore. When Bernard left, Malik smiled for the first time in a long time. 2 days later, Marissa was officially charged. Attempted murder. Despite expensive lawyers, the case was growing with new evidence. Too much resonance, too precise an examination. Even for those with connections, this was serious. Meanwhile, Bernard became the hero of the headlines. Not as a victim, but as a person who survived betrayal and chose trust. His words from one interview spread around the world. A boy from the street saved my life. It's not about my vulnerability, it's about his strength. And as long as there are kids like him in the world, we have a chance. A month passed. New York was blooming, coming to life. The city has always moved on, but Malik's name did not leave the news. His story was discussed more than the trial itself, and oddly enough, the attention to him did not fade. The spacious living room of a cozy townhouse in Brooklyn smelled of fresh pastries and coffee. Malik was doing his homework. A new sweatshirt, a tablet with textbooks, a cup of hot cocoa. All this became part of his new reality. How are you doing with math? Bernard asked, coming in with a bun in his hands. Better than yesterday, Malik grinned. I understand fractions. They are like dividing food on the street, only more honest. Bernard laughed. In a month they had become closer. Not like father and son, it was still too early, but more than just an adult and a rescued boy. Malik no longer flinched from touches, did not cringe at glances. He began to get used to the silence, to the closet with his things, to the conversation before bed. Guardianship was arranged temporarily, but the documents for permanent custody had already been filed. There were no objections. Everyone knew how it all began, and were happy to see how it continued. You knew, right, that I might not believe you? Bernard asked one night when they were watching an old movie. I knew, Malik answered, but if you had eaten the soup, there would have been no one to believe. The trial went on as usual. Marissa's lawyers tried to play on the emotional background, conducted psychiatric examinations, hinted at stress. But the investigation was strong. Confessions, poisonous substance, documents with secret translations. Bernard did not come to every meeting. He did not want to relive the betrayal. His attention was elsewhere, nearby, in this new life with Malik. One evening they returned home late, after a visit to the Museum of Natural History. Malik couldn't tear himself away from the dinosaur model for a long time and held binoculars in his hands for the first time. You said you wanted to be an archaeologist, didn't you? Bernard reminded him. I wanted to, the boy muttered. And now, maybe I can. They were having dinner on the terrace. Malik was helping to heat up the pizza. The city was noisy somewhere below, but it was quiet here. Remember, you said you dreamed of a toothbrush and a place to sleep? Bernard asked closer tonight. Malik nodded. Now you have both and more. But if you ever want to go back to that life, I won't stop you. Malik looked at him seriously and answered firmly, I won't go back. Just know, Bernard said, you'll always have a home. Malik didn't answer. He just came up to him and hugged him. For real. Without fear, without the protective mask he was used to on the street. At that moment, words were not needed. A little more time passed. Malik started studying at a private school. They accepted him with caution, but it quickly became clear. He grasped things faster than many. Teachers noted his attention to detail, intuition, tenacious logic. And the curator from the guardianship department once said, sometimes just one adult is enough to change a child's fate. But Bernard knew it's different. Sometimes one child is enough to remind adults what they should be like. The story surfaced in the news again, but not as a crime drama, but as an inspiring example. Bernard Chambers established the Malik Foundation to help children who ended up on the streets, but did not lose their courage and truth. The foundation's logo is a silhouette of a boy standing at the door of a restaurant. Underneath it is the motto, "A hero is one who speaks the truth, even if the whole world is silent."